Next, I want to introduce Dr. Melson, who's in plastics in Nashville, and he can tell us a thing or two about sort of the other side of our lives, it's also important, the financial aspects, from one MD to the rest of us.
Thank you guys so much. So I think you guys gave me about 2 hours. So we're going to go into a lot of accounting. We're going to go into details on taxes and that kind of stuff. But I think we're going to cut it down because it's getting late. This is just a broad overview of things you should think about financially. This lifestyle stuff is the most important, and I will tell you what is the most life-changing thing on earth is when your kids are old enough to leave at home alone. Because you can put them to bed sometimes and say, Mommy and Daddy are going to have some wine. And then you can go have a drink at a friend's house around the corner or do whatever, and it's great. But those first few years of your career will be incredibly stressful, but you want to think about some things financially so that those later years in your career, you're not going, holy crap, I don't have any money now. I made a lot of money, but I don't have any money, and now I have to work until I'm 80. You know, I want to be like Rob Melendez. I want to be racing cars when I'm, getting ready to retire and that kind of stuff. I don't want to have to be working 80 hours a week in the OR when I'm 75, and I know doctors who have operated those later years, not because they just love ophthalmology, but because they have to, because they haven't made a great financial plan. So we're going to run through a quick checklist. I have no financial disclosures related to anything. All right, things on your list. You are going to have income, and unfortunately, you're going to pay a lot of taxes on those income, on that income. You may have loans. You have to have insurance. You need to have savings. You need to plan for your retirement. If you are going to have kids, you need to plan for them, but then you have to have a life. But you can't have that good life unless you've planned for this other stuff. So what is your income? Most of you are going to go into a job where you're employed. Most of you are not crazy enough to finish residency, take out a big bank loan, and start your own practice. And you wonder, why am I talking about finances to begin with? Well, I did an accounting degree undergrad. I did consulting and accounting before I decided to go to med school. I started a consulting firm for small businesses, then went to med school, then did plastics fellowship and a neuro fellowship, then did academics at Vandy for 6 years in Nashville, and then got this great idea when I'm 40 years old to go out and start a solo practice. You need a lot of Xanax for that. And so I wouldn't recommend it as the first step to your career. Chances are you're going to go get a fixed salary or some kind of salary plus incentive thing. Or you may even, in some cases, be offered a deal where you're an independent contractor where right off the bat you're given a percentage of just your collection straight up. And then hopefully one day, if you're not in a complete employed position, you may get partnership and ownership in it. The most important thing to remember is that when you are negotiating for a job, even though you feel like, oh my gosh, they gave me an interview, this is the greatest thing ever, and that they have all the power, everything is negotiable. You are a valuable asset to anywhere. You are an ophthalmologist. Now, if you want to move to New York City and start off with the highest salary and live on the Upper West Side on Central Park, you may not be able to negotiate that into your contract. But there are places around the country that desperately need you, and everything is negotiable. But often you don't have the skills it takes to negotiate those kind of contracts, and there are people out there. There's resources at the Academy. If you go on their AAOE page for contract negotiation stuff, and the most important, have a lawyer review this stuff. I mean, lawyers are expensive. When I started my practice, I wanted to throw up every day when I saw how much I was paying lawyers to go through stuff. But it completely is worth spending the money now to save a lot of money down the road when something goes wrong. I currently have a partner. She was in practice for 25 years before we joined together, and we spent a whole lot of money getting married, and basically we've never looked at our contract since because we did it right. But if we ever have to look at it, we know it was worth spending the money. I'm not going to go into a lot of taxes because basically tax stuff changes all the time. You are going to pay a lot of taxes where you are. You are going to most likely at some point be in the highest tax bracket. You may not start there, but you probably will end up there. Depending on where you live, you pay state taxes, local taxes. Your paycheck, you may say, here's what I'm earning per month, but then you're going to get 60, 50% of that sometimes, and especially when you factor in the fact that you're paying Social Security taxes, you're maxing out on Social Security taxes, you're paying Medicare taxes, you're paying property taxes if you own a house, you're paying sales taxes. I'm in Tennessee, we're at 9.25%. Some places have 10% or more in sales taxes. So just every dollar you spend, you're spending. The most important little pearl here is just always think about, before you make a big financial move, think about what it means for your tax burden, because you want to minimize what you're paying while maximizing what is yours. So if you're doing a savings program, anything, can you make it better from a tax standpoint? And you're going to have to just consult somebody for that. Loans. Chances are you have them. If you don't, great. You are absolutely in a perfect position to start your career because you don't already have a mortgage sitting on top of yourself. But if you do have loans, think about them when you come out. Don't just accept the plan that they give you and say, okay, I'll pay $3,000 a month and do it. Because maybe you want to free up that cash flow for something else. Look at repayment options. How much cash flow do you need? If you come out of residency and you have 3 kids and your spouse doesn't work, you may not be able to pay those loans off in 10 years, and that's fine. You can refinance them, and the loan rates, especially for federal student loans, are always lower than a lot of other kind of loans for things. So just think about that. Of course, you don't want to be paying off your student loans when you're about to retire, but again, if the interest rate's really low, it may make more sense to do that than to be borrowing money for other things. All right, number one, if you don't listen to anything else, listen to this. Insurance is the most important thing you can do in your life. And just, I believe, like Camille was saying, and before that too, we are prone to getting injured for things. You are 3 to 5 times more likely to become disabled in your life than you are to die. And when you become disabled, you can't work. You cannot generate your income. Now is the time for you to think about buying disability insurance if you've already not done so. I speak from experience. I did not buy disability insurance when I was your age. Then when I was 38 years old, I had a significant medical event and decided afterward to go buy disability insurance. And that's fine, I got it, I was issued it. I have an exclusion on my policy that if I become disabled from the stuff that I had, I'm not covered for it. Stupid decision. And it's much more expensive to buy it now. But I'm still covered, so if I do get messed up, I pay my bills, my family does not go bankrupt. So look into own occupation. I cannot be a retina surgeon anymore. I get paid. Or plastics or whatever you do. Another one that's important that is very cheap, and I mean cheap like a couple $100 a year, is umbrella policy. You are a rich doctor. Your license plate says, I'm a rich doctor. So when you're in a car wreck and you have $300,000 of coverage on your car insurance, that's great, but that person's gonna step out of that car, they're gonna see your beat up old Honda, but it says I'm a doctor on it somewhere. They're gonna fall down and die and say, oh my gosh, this is a $3 million injury, and you only have $300,000 in car insurance liability. An umbrella policy for I think I have $2 million in an umbrella policy, and it costs me like $200 a year or something, and that's if I'm playing golf and I shank a drive out into the highway and kill someone. That's that extra $2 million that kicks in on top of that. Very, very important. Someone comes to your house, falls down your stairs, you're covered by the umbrella policy. Life insurance, everybody knows about it. Really, it's third on this list because if nobody depends on you and you're just don't care, you really don't have to have life insurance. But chances are somebody depends on your income, and if they do, you want to insure your life. Life insurance is very, very cheap, provided you're reasonably healthy. So now is the time to buy it. Buy, for a long period of time so that your premiums are not very high. And then malpractice insurance, health insurance, home auto, miscellaneous, you have to have them all. Usually those things are covered in a contract or something, so I wouldn't worry too much. Health insurance is a huge issue if you do become self-employed or a partner in a practice at some point, because you're ultimately paying for all the premiums yourself. I pay this year alone, probably for my family of 4, my total medical costs out of pocket are about $20,000 is what I'm paying, so that's real money. All right, savings, investment, retirement. Basically, check this off. Put a little bit aside every month in that emergency rainy day fund, because disability insurance, for instance, often doesn't kick in for 3 to 6 months. You want to have a little rainy day fund. If you happen to just break your wrist. I ran into a friend of mine yesterday who was in residency with me at a hospital in the same town, had a cast on. He's a cornea surgeon. 6 weeks, no operating, works in private practice. You know what that means? 6 weeks, you don't make LASIK and cataract money anymore because your disability policy doesn't kick in. So you need to have a little bit of savings to be able to pay the mortgage, to pay school tuition, whatever it is. You have taxable investments, so after you've saved your emergency fund, and we're going to talk about retirement too, but there's other investments you can make, including passive income investments, which are nice. If you work in an ASC and you make a lot of money for that ASC, it's nice to take a little bit of ownership in that and have some of that profit become yours. So that's something to think about down the road. All right, retirement. This is the one. You cannot finance your retirement. You have borrowed money from medical school, you can borrow money for a car, you can borrow money for a house. Guess what? Nobody loans you money to say, hey, I want to get really old and just have somebody support me, because you have no way to pay it back. So you want to have a plan other than holding up a sign. Traditional pensions used to be the way to go. My dad worked for the same company for 45 years. Between Social Security and his pension plan, he makes more money than any year than when he ever actually was working. That's awesome. It's not going to happen now. Call your union representative if you think it is, but we don't have that. So, move along. Traditional retirement plans that we see now are the most common stuff are 401ks, 403bs if you're employed, and maybe your employer matches. You can save a decent amount every year, but start working out the math. If you only save $18,000 a year for your retirement, even if you start now, you're probably not going to have as much as you think. You'll have a nice little nest egg, but you're not going to have the kind of money that you really want. You can do an IRA, and traditionally you could take money that's before taxes, put it in an IRA, but you can't do it. You make too much money for that. Even with your first job, you're going to make too much. So you can't do that. You can put away money that is already taxed into an IRA, but then when you go into retirement, you will be taxed on whatever that money has earned over all those years. That's okay. That's okay. But there's another option, too, called a Roth IRA. Well, you're going to look online and say, well, I make too much money to contribute to a Roth IRA. But yay for tax lawyers, they figured out a way to do what's called a backdoor IRA, where you can put all your money into a traditional IRA and then just convert it at some point into a tax Roth IRA, which means you never pay taxes on any of the earnings over that whole time. So if your money grows by $1 million, you never pay taxes on that. So these are things to think about. You want to have a retirement advisor. I am not a retirement advisor. Do not call me about how to do this. But you want to talk to somebody who knows the ins and outs of retirement planning. If you're self-employed, there's options to save. They can be very complicated, and you need somebody professional to do it. But you can save a whole lot of money if you are self-employed with the IRS limits that are there. All right, we're heading to the end here. Kids. So everything we've talked about, forget it. If you decide to have kids, they are going to completely blow up your financial plan, even more so than starting your own practice when you're 40. Because basically they're just expensive. In 2015, the USDA had a report on how much families spend, and for a family that was making over $100,000 in the Southeast, the cost to raise a kid to age 17 was $350,000 or so, and that's assuming they go to public school. Well, if you live in Nashville, the public school system's not great, which means you're going to then drop somewhere between $10,000 and $30,000 a year per child on private school. Do the numbers on that. That's another $250,000 a kid to get them through high school. So all this money you're making, I've been telling you all this stuff to invest in, you realize, like, holy cow, I don't have that. And then your kids are really smart, and they want to go to college, and they somehow are going to expect you to pay for it, and you're going to find out, well, there's another $400,000 by the time you guys are there that you're going to have to pay for your kids to go to college. So you have been working your butt off all this time, and you realize, and for those in the room who have been working longer than I have, you realize you spend a whole lot of money on all of these other things. So then you think, well, but wait a minute, I'm an ophthalmologist, and the new Ferraris came out, and they're awesome, and I want one. And the fact is, my college roommates who started a hedge fund and sold it, they are buying Ferraris now. In fact, one of my college roommates bought 2 on the same day. Good for him. It's not going to happen for you anytime soon. But The point of this is if you do make sound financial plans and starting now, and you say, what do I value in life? Do I want to have a giant house? So that house down there at the bottom is actually in Nashville. It's on the market now. It's $18 million, but if you came with a $17 million cash offer, I bet they will let it go. If you decide you want the really big house, then that's what you plan for. You make those kind of decisions. We've decided we don't want that house. We love to travel. And I love to go fly fishing all over the country with my kids and do this kind of stuff. And that's what we do. Talking lifestyle stuff. And this does not leave the room. I mean, I took a lot of vacation last year. And on purpose, like I've been in private practice for 4 years, working very hard, and I said, I'm going to take more vacation this year than I've ever taken before, and I did. And it feels damn good. And I'm not taking expensive vacations. I'm not going to the Seychelles, and staying in these luxury villas. I'm going backpacking in Wyoming and floating down a river, and it's cheaper than, spring break, but it's just managing the time. If you want the Patek Philippe, $35,000 watch, then save for it. Make that plan, and you can do it. But if you don't have a plan and you just get that first paycheck, and you get that paycheck and you think about whatever your salary is, that check is likely to be like a big check, and you think, holy cow, look what I can do. And you go running off and you take that check and buy a Rolex or something, and then you realize, oh crap, I don't have any more money. Then you're in trouble. So over time, income's gonna grow, and if you've planned for it, your retirement savings are gonna grow. So you have to think to yourself right now in your life, when you're first coming out, do you wanna make it rain, or do you wanna plan for a rainy day, have some savings, have a financial plan? And if you do, and you have that checklist, and you go through it every year, you're gonna be a whole lot better off when you're 45 years old, when you're 60 years old, when you're 75 years old. Thank you very much.